The past 3 videos have been talking about microphones, and it's fair to say that with microphones it's a very subjective thing. What one engineer might like or one artist might like, another artist may differ. Now we're going to talk about cables, and this is more objective. The proof of the pudding with a cable is, can you get a true signal down it, and are you picking up any interference? The other thing is, how reliable are they? Over the past 30 or 40 years, some things have changed in a recording studio cable-wise. When I first worked in a recording studio, we had speaker cables that ran from amplifier to speakers. They're nearly non-existent now. Most speaker systems have internal amplifiers. Multi-cores from the main desk to live rooms used to be a regular thing. Now they seem to be replaced by Cat5 cables. Something that's stayed the same and has the same problems as there were years ago are microphone cables and guitar lead cables. These cables differ in size, thickness, and insulation to the extent that you can pay a few pounds for a 3-metre cable, or you can pay 40 or 50 pounds for a 3-metre cable. So what's the difference between a very cheap microphone cable and guitar cable that you can get from a mail order company, or from the more expensive ones like Megami or Van Dam? Well, there's quite a big difference when it comes to build. When it comes to sound quality, there's very little difference. I've done various tests on very cheap cables compared with the more expensive cable. Tonal quality, hardly hearable, if hearable at all. When it comes to the quality of build, the strength of the cable, and dealing with interference from radio frequencies and electromagnetic frequencies, is massive. Let's start with the build quality. Back in the day when I was running a PA hire company, one of the main things that we always carried around with us was a soldering iron and solder, because we were always repairing cables. The more expensive cables have very good fittings, mostly Neutrex when it comes to Megami and Van Dam. These fittings, the actual fitting side of it is very, very good. You press the disconnect button and it works every time. If cables get damaged, and trust me, with PA hire they do get damaged, they're easily resolderable. When it comes to the cheaper cables from mail order companies, I found that the fittings were substandard, whereas the Neutrex has a very good way of keeping the cable in the fitting. A lot of the cheaper ones, they're easy to pull out. Also, resoldering on these cables, a Neutrex fitting you could resolder a dozen times and still get a good strong joint. On the cheaper ones you found that after a time, a couple of solder joints, they were useless. This is the Neutrex, and the release mechanism seems smooth, very solid, like it'll do the job very well. The clone seems a bit stiff and clunky, and personally I wouldn't feel happy with it with a £2,000 microphone. The Neutrex build quality is excellent. The components fit together smoothly and accurately. The sleeve is long and covers the terminals, stop them earthing on the outside, and the locking mechanism clamps the cable to it. The build quality on the clone is not as good. The fittings, when put in, don't seem to slide together as good neither. The sleeve as such doesn't cover the terminals. It is quite robust, but in the past we've noticed that some of this type of XLR, if somebody trips over it, the cable can pull out. Compared with the Neutrex, it's not quite the same. This is a mail order 1/4-inch jack, mostly used for guitar. As you can see on the fitting, the clamp, if pressed too hard, can cut into the cable. If not pressed hard enough, it will not hold the cable in. There is a sleeve and then the screen. The Neutrex easily solderable, then placed into the sheath, and the plastic sheath, which stops it earthing, covers the whole of the fittings. The end piece then screws in and very firmly fixes the cable and clamps it in. Interference from electromagnetic and radio interference can become a big problem in recording studios, and this is where the higher quality microphone cable comes into its own to get rid of it. Obviously you can use cheaper cables, but you've got to keep it away from transformers and from telephones. Over the last 6 months we've used quite a lot of cable, about 3 or 4 drums worth. Because we're buying in bulk, we did test a lot of cables. The one that came out on top for quality, reliability, and this did have Neutrex fittings, was the Lynx Professional. I rate these cables very, very highly, and we award the DB to them.
Like our videos, subscribe and comment down below.
It's a bit boring talking about cables.
How come all these cables always end up in knots?
We live in knots.
We live in Nottingham, you obelisk.
I thought I was a megalith.
You're a mega sore arse.